Over 100 Chinese warships are sailing towards Japan, and they could be about to attack. And this is the biggest ever fleet of Chinese warships, and they're reportedly carrying nuclear missiles. Even Taiwan is worried. They said, quote, "We must anticipate the enemy as broadly as possible," suggesting that they're preparing to be attacked too. But something you need to know, which is really unusual, is that China hasn't even spoken on this. Usually, for things far smaller than this, China makes big announcements about the exercises, but today we've heard nothing. And according to reports, China would only do that if they were preparing to do something they don't want the world to know about. But this comes at the exact same time that China and Japan have been threatening to attack each other over the last 2 weeks, like we've never seen before. And to add to what I just said, despite these warships sailing directly towards Japan, Japan has refused to speak on it as well. That's really weird. It would suggest that Japan knows something. They know something that they don't want the world to know they know. Taiwan, on the other hand, just couldn't keep their mouth shut. They said, quote, "This move by China goes far beyond China's national defense needs, and it creates a risk for all sides." So at the moment, we don't know exactly what they're for, but the biggest ever fleet of Chinese warships is literally sailing towards Japan right now. But there might be a reason China is doing this now. To be fair, despite all of the issues, over the last 10 years or so, the US actually hasn't been that preoccupied. The US actually hasn't really gone to war with anyone. Yes, they supported the Ukraine situation, but the US still had a free hand. But it seems with the US being about to invade Venezuela, maybe China is taking this as an opportunity to invade Japan. At least that's what some people are saying. But it's not just Venezuela. The US has also threatened to invade Greenland. On that point though, just months after threatening to invade Greenland, today Greenland actually discovered a huge amount of gold. It'll make sense why this is important in a moment, but these are actually some of the most densely packed gold reserves in the world. And people are saying the US wants to invade Greenland for this gold. A new report came out today that the gold reserves which have been discovered in southern Greenland have up to 40 grams of gold per ton of rock mined. For comparison, a really good amount of gold is just 5 grams per ton, and Greenland has found almost 8 times that. But the reason why I say the US is preoccupied at the moment, something they haven't been for the last 10 years, is that they've also been arguing with Denmark for the last few months about getting control of Greenland. This might be why these Chinese warships are sailing towards Japan. In fact, it wasn't long ago that the US Vice President actually visited Greenland to talk about the US literally taking control of it. And so it goes without saying that the reason the US is now wanting to invade Greenland is actually because of these gold reserves they've just discovered there. The official reason the US says they want to control Greenland is actually because of how important it is strategically. It's in the Arctic. And yes, that might be true, but with these massive new gold reserves that have been found, it goes without saying, people are understandably saying the US just wants them as well. Now, Denmark actually hasn't spoke on these gold reserves, and to be fair, neither has the US or Greenland, except a company which does the mining in Greenland announced the reserves. To be fair, Denmark, the US and Greenland each haven't spoke on these reserves. The reason we know about them is because the company that mines the gold in Greenland announced the gold today. But the US is really preoccupied with war at the minute. It's very likely why China is sailing those warships towards Japan currently. Even today, the US has warned Iraq that Israel is preparing to bomb them. They said, quote, "If Iraq continues to support Hezbollah, they face a harsh Israeli strike." And not only would this actually be the 8th country that Israel has bombed this year, but this is the one that would likely cause a bigger war. Well, what's important is today, the US envoy to Syria and the ambassador to Turkey met with the newly re-elected Iraqi Prime Minister. According to reports, he warns Iraq that if Iraq does not stop the groups in Iraq that arm Hezbollah in Lebanon, then Israel will attack them. Although I want to make clear, from the way it was framed, it seemed as if the US actually supported these Israeli strikes, despite the risk of war that they would bring. The groups that Israel would be attacking in Iraq have over 200,000 soldiers in, and these groups have said they would definitely retaliate if Israel launches an attack. And they're probably not lying. These groups have previously attacked Israel before. Towards the start of the Gaza war, they were doing it loads. Just over the last year, they kind of scaled back those attacks, which is why Israel hasn't attacked them. But the Israeli attacks could definitely restart again. There's nothing stopping it from happening. It seems with these meetings today between the US ambassador and the Iraqi Prime Minister, it's the US giving Iraq their last warning before they allow Israel to carry out attacks. But on the topic of the Middle East, it's not just Iraq doing things. Today, after blowing up their cargo ship and kidnapping them for months, the Houthis in Yemen have only just released the sailors of that cargo ship. Specifically, today the Houthis have released 9 out of the 13 Filipino crew on that cargo ship. The other 4 were actually killed when the cargo ship was attacked. The Philippines Foreign Ministry was understandably really annoyed. They said, quote, "The crew have been held hostage by the Houthis since July." But from what we know, there are other countries involved in this as well. A according to reports today, Oman sent an Air Force plane to Yemen to pick up these hostages. Also, according to reports, Oman will be taking them back to the Philippines. But the Houthis, on the other hand, denied the claims that they just kidnapped the sailors. They said they rescued them. Despite bombing the cargo ship and killing 4 of the crew, the Houthis maintain the fact that if they didn't rescue the people, then they would have just drowned because their cargo ship was sinking. But when this happened, it actually caused a lot of outrage, mainly because the Houthis didn't even announce that they had kidnapped the sailors. Not only had the Houthis bombed the cargo ship, but we didn't know whether the crew were all dead or whether the Houthis had taken them, because they didn't say anything. Either way, they've been released now. Putin just visited India, and Putin said, quote, "This visit is of great importance, and you need to know what's happening." And what's important is this is Putin's first visit in over 4 years, so there's a lot to talk about. The report also said, quote, "This visit will send a strong message that Russia is not isolated, as the West claims they are." But one of the most important things about this visit is that India might be buying Russia's best air defense systems and fighter jets. Back in May, India used Russia's S-400 air defense systems, and they claimed they shot down Pakistani fighter jets with them. And so, if India buys the best ones, the Russian S-500, then it would make India far powerful than they already are. But something worth knowing, this actually comes just weeks after the US said that India is moving away from Russia. In fact, the US said that India was going to stop buying Russian oil and weapons. So with India doing this today, buying these Russian best weapons, then it really kind of embarrasses the US and it makes the US appear to be liars. But as well as that, reports are that Russia's planning to open up their borders to Indian workers, possibly 3 million of them. And if that happens, not only would it massively grow Russia and India's economies together, but it would also really push them a lot closer together because they'd rely on each other. The opposite the US wants. But Russia also did something today, which is really quite interesting. Russia today has banned Roblox as it has, quote, "inappropriate content that can negatively impact development of children." But you need to know that despite this, sounding pretty crazy, it's not just Russia doing this. Recently, Singapore blamed Roblox for being behind a teenager in Singapore wanting to join ISIS. They claimed Roblox radicalized him. And last month, the US sued Roblox for, quote, "deceiving parents and ignoring safety laws." However, you should know that Russia banned Roblox in response to, quote, "terrorism-related content and information on LGBT issues." And Russia also said they found proof there was, quote, "Roblox servers simulating terrorist attacks, as well as gambling." Now, to be fair, despite this being one of the most downloaded games in Russia, there actually hasn't been that much pushback by the Russian people. Although Roblox themselves did push back, they said, quote, "We provide a positive space for learning." As you'd expect, they completely denied what Russia said. They said, quote, "We have safety measures designed to catch and prevent harmful content on our platform." Regardless of that though, Russia has now banned Roblox today. But onto something more important. Recently, Argentina threatened to invade the Falkland Islands again. In fact, they just received fighter jets and they're preparing to actually do that now. And so yes, it's important knowing about small things like Russia banning Roblox. But if you don't know about the big things like that, then it's kind of pointless even watching these videos. So to make sure you didn't waste your time watching this video, you need to know about the important things, like Argentina threatening to invade the Falkland Islands. So click here to watch that video and click here to subscribe so that you can see tomorrow's daily news recap where I summarize all of the news from the last 24 hours.